Good morning. Today is Wednesday, February 17th, 2021, and welcome to a brand new episode of JLJ This Morning. We have so much to get into, of course, but before we do, let's check in on our co-host. Joe, how are you this morning?
Fantastic. It's another day in the life.
Yes, it is. And Miss Emmy, how are you today?
Fabulous.
Awesome. And of course, the always lovely Veronica Dang, how are you?
Good. It's the first week of the Lunar New Year, so I have to try to be nice this
week. It's a very difficult thing to do, isn't it?
Especially with a lot of stuff going on in the news.
Yes, and there is a lot. So let's just hop right into it. Of course, what's been the trending topic on everybody's mind is that Trump was acquitted in his second impeachment trial. The Senate decided to acquit him on Saturday, voting that Trump was not guilty of inciting the insurrection that took place on January 6th. The final vote was 57 guilty to 43 not guilty, short of the 67 guilty votes needed to convict. There were, in fact, some Republicans who did join in to convict him, and they were Richard Burr, Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, Lisa Mosquerit, Pat Toomey, and Mitt Romney. People are saying that perhaps the biggest surprise was Burr, who led the Senate Russia investigation, who also voted earlier that week that the trial was in fact unconstitutional. So there definitely was some changing of the minds as the trial unfolded up until that verdict came in on that Saturday. So Emmy, let's go to you on this first. What do you think of the impeachment as a whole as it unfolded? And then what do you also think of Republicans joining in? Though it was a small number, there were still some that joined in to convict.
I think it was a losing battle for the House. I'm gonna liken it to the OJ trial, where everybody knew that this person was guilty of what he was accused of, but we all knew that he would get away with it. The great thing about this is he can now stand trial criminally. The weird part about this trial, though, was as I'm watching it, I'm confused. So he's saying that they stole my election, I'm the president, but then his lawyers would argue, well, he's a private citizen now, so why are you charging him? I was just very confused. I didn't understand what their strategy was, but I feel like they already knew they had it in the bag. They were talking, any normal trial, if you, as a attorney, talk to jury members, the trial is just, it's a mistrial. Like, you lose. They were actively talking to Republican jury members during breaks, and they were not shy about it. And Moscow Mitch was saying how Trump is a bad person and blah, blah, blah. He voted to acquit him, and then he went back and said, oh, Trump's still a bad person. And I'm like, well, why did you acquit him? I'm just proud that we in this country saw somebody, 4 or 5 people stand up to a bully. And then other people in his party stood up to him. And that is more telling for me. I mean, I knew they weren't going to win, but I'm glad that they stood up to a bully. I feel a little bit vindication. But just know, OJ doesn't have a great life, and neither does the Dream Team. Just saying. Karma.
And, you know, it is interesting that you bring up Mitch McConnell, who did a lot of flip-flopping throughout that week, along with a lot of people, you know, especially we already brought up Burr, who said it was unconstitutional to do the trial in the first place, and then he votes to convict. So I think, you know, it really just goes to show the broad stroke of how broken down the government was during this trial, because, you know, as something plays out and as you learn information, I feel like the people in that room during those hearings, during, the trial itself, were also learning things about themselves and where they stood politically. Joe, let's go to you. What do you think of the impeachment as a whole? And then, in my opinion, the truly not surprising way things turned out.
I was actually surprised they got to 57 votes, to be honest. I thought it was going to fall right along party lines like it always does. I also find it ironic that someone like Mitch will vote for impeaching a president for lying about getting a blowjob, but doesn't feel that this is somehow constitutional. I think it was largely a procedural error on the Democrat side to have waited until Trump was out of the office to have this whole situation move forward. At the end of the day, I think, this is not an unusual response or an unusual, outcome for what was pretty much a foregone conclusion. Unless they were getting broad Republican support when the impeachment process started, there was no way that they were going to ever vote to convict him. So I think it's just on to the next thing. Hopefully this has at least done enough to prevent someone in the future from being able to say, well, if I lose, it doesn't really matter. I can promote some kind of insurrection. Hopefully it's enough to prevent that type of situation from happening again. I guess we'll have to wait and see how emboldened that would make another politician to do it.
Well, that's the thing though, Joe. They wanted to bring this impeachment right away, but Mitch McConnell would not allow them to. He wanted to wait till the new administration came in because he didn't want to make the decision.
Yeah.
So he prevented it.
Yeah. And that's where the procedural issue comes in, is allowing that to be the conversation. I mean, immediately after they had won the runoff in Georgia, that gave them all the leverage that they needed to be able to push forward with it. And, it gave them a 2-3 week head start to kind of start practicing for what the conversation was going to look like, to start putting it out there on conservative news outlets that this was some kind of farce, and to start building the case against the impeachment in the public eye. Because ultimately what it comes down to, even those 7 Republicans that voted on the same side as the Democrats did, they were doing that because they knew that there wasn't 67 votes. So for them, it was, it's a great showpiece when you're talking about being in a purple district or being in a seat where it's a little bit more contentious. But, putting that on your resume.
Some of them were retiring, so it didn't matter to them.
And some of them just, they don't care. That's their legacy, is they want to walk out saying that they've done their part to protect democracy. But, it's largely for show. And I think that's the problem with a lot of politics right now, is that it's pomp and circumstance and there's no substance to it.
Well, I think it's a PR thing for some, but for Mitt Romney, I don't think it's a PR thing. That Eugene saved his life, literally saved that man's life. I think Mitt was really adamant about his vote. I think people like Susan Collins, PR thing. And notice, none of them are being canceled. Not one of them. Just saying.
And Mitt voted in the very first impeachment, the Mueller investigation. So he's
not been canceled by them. Notice
what's interesting about where the PR stunt lies and where the call to serve the people lies. I find, a lot of people to be more on the side of the PR stunt. We talked about this last week with Marjorie Greene and Cheney, how we felt one was doing a PR stunt and the other was serving the people. I think what's missing from this country lately is serving the people. They talk about this impeachment trial being unconstitutional, some do. However, we delayed it because people pressured other people to delay it that were in power. So this whole thing is very interesting to me. At the end of the day, I'm still glad it happened because I think that it is such an eye-opener as to why it happened. Veronica, of course, on the first day of the trial, if we go back to that first day, the insurrection video was shown, that 13-minute piece that was put together by House managers. What did you think of that? And then what did you think of the impeachment as a whole as it unfolded?
I mean, I couldn't watch the video. It's just so triggering because I still remember seeing it at the time it was happening. So, but I have to say shout out to the impeachment managers for laying down like a really organized, well thought out, case. I mean, that's one thing, like if they had done it right away, which I mean they wanted to, but again, McConnell is like the most powerful man in DC. Like he's more powerful than the president because he seems to stop everything from happening or, letting justice be served. But so at least with this time they were able to collect more evidence and put these videos together, and every day there's more information coming out. That's the thing. I mean, I wish they called witnesses, but they believe that, I mean, the Republicans threatened to make it drag out and like just completely derail Biden's administration and stop like confirmation of Merrick Garland. And we definitely needed DOJ right now. So that's a thing. Like the Congress keeps on like not wanting to do their job because they want to like stay in power because that's all they care about. Like most of them. I mean, obviously there's the few that voted correctly or voted for democracy. And I just like huge shout out. They actually said with those 7, it's like the most bipartisan for impeachments, although half of them are Trump's impeachments, but
yeah.
But it was a bipartisan thing. And then the other thing was the constitutionality. They had already voted on it and they said it was constitutional. So they can't, even though it's part of their big lie, right? No matter, Biden won the election, but they didn't because they don't care and they don't believe in it and they want to like keep fundraising and say. And then the constitutionality, they all agreed that he was guilty, but that's the only little thing they could hold on to like give themselves a little cover, even though it was voted on, it was constitutional in this story. So once it's voted on, they can't say it wasn't. I mean, they can't.
Isn't that the crazy part about it, though, is that their ability to create the narrative and to control the narrative and how people see this situation has, I mean, it almost makes it seem like, well, he got off again, so this is kind of legitimate. Maybe they were right. Maybe he didn't do anything that bad. And they've controlled that narrative all the time. It's really impressive how they do it.
It honestly is. I mean, it's the ultimate spin factor, really. And, it's quite, in a crazy way, impressive. Because I was scrolling through my Twitter one day and I saw this video pop up from Donald Trump Jr. And it was just insane what he was saying. But as I was watching the video, I'm like, I see how Trump supporters believe what they do. Truly, they buy into the hype. They buy into all the crazy metaphors and, the crazy scapegoats in politics. And it's quite fascinating from a psychological standpoint what America is left with when it comes to this man. But, then again, there's so much that I don't understand about it. When it comes to when some Republicans say that this was unconstitutional, well, you took a vote, they let your voice be heard. And at the end of the day, the majority said that it was constitutional to hold the second impeachment trial. So it's all very interesting to me.
McConnell, when he's saying, he voted against because it wasn't constitutional, because they were trying to convict him after he left office, even though it was all McConnell's idea to do it afterwards. And he refused to bring them back from recess. Like, it's so crazy. We know you're guilty, but we're just going to do whatever we can to like not be responsible. So what I found interesting was that, so their case was also that it's not their job to convict him. They said they want to leave it up to the states, like civil and criminal courts. So, all right, welcome to New York, Southern District. We're going to do the job that we pay tax money to these people.
We'll see what happens. I think it's.
I'm hoping. I mean, at least they'll be in court and they can't lie. Because the problem with the impeachments with politicians, so you can lie. There's nobody to say you can't lie. Well, in court, the same thing. That's why they lose all those cases about the election fraud. They like fraud. But when they in the court, they're like, is there any cases of fraud? Nope. And then they lost all their cases. Being in court is different than being in the whatever.
OJ lost his big case, but then Las Vegas said, "Oh, I don't think so," and he served time. Just saying.
I'm just saying.
How bad do you feel if you're one of those people that donated to Trump's legal fund, though? Like, how bad do you feel?
What do you mean?
Like, if none of your money went towards an actual legal fund.
Well, they don't hear that.
I mean,
that's the thing. They get a whole other like news. Like the news my parents watch is like YouTube videos and like weird websites, and they don't get normal news, and they don't watch like things that are happening. I actually look at the things that I see before my eyes come out of the mouth of the person committing the crime.
It's just crazy to think of how much money they dumped into, Trump's pocket.
Yeah, and you saw that they transferred all to his personal account.
Yeah, and he's going to squander that anyway because he's going to end up having to go bankrupt again. His businesses are having a whole slew of issues.
And he got kicked out of the Actors Union SAG, so he can't get his residuals.
Well, he quit. He didn't get kicked out. He quit before he could get kicked out because it's ridiculous.
They still banned him from. They were always planning to kick him out, but they also
he was still
banned him for life. Like he can't come back into the union.
Yeah, like I said, he's never gonna have a Pinterest account, so I feel good.
I don't want him anywhere near my Pinterest.
Keep pins onto his board.
Nope, he can't do it. He's gonna have to get a chalkboard.
Well, did you hear about his Twitter? What he does? I don't know if it's true, but it sounds true. So because he got banned from Twitter, apparently he's so sad about it that he writes it on a piece of paper and tries to get people he knows to post it on Twitter for him.
Allegedly,
yes. So anyway, it will be interesting to see what happens the next coming months. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, let's move on from him. Let's move on to something else to talk about. Please. So speaking of problematic men, let's talk about Justin Timberlake.
Oh, I think
so. Of course, we've all heard or even maybe seen the Britney Spears documentary that came out that tracked Britney's career and then went into her conservatorship that her father holds. And in the middle of the documentary, Justin Timberlake was talked about because of Britney's former relationship with him. And, what's interesting here is after Britney and Justin broke up, of course, he released the album that painted her as the crazy cheater and him as the hopeless romantic. Of course, there was the Janet Jackson incident following years later. And then, I believe it was it would have been 2 years ago by now, the Jessica Biel incident where he was cozying up to another woman that wasn't her, his wife. And so coming from all of this, Justin has come to Instagram to release an apology. He says, the industry is flawed. It sets men, especially white men, up for success. As a man in a privileged position, I have to be vocal about this. Because of my ignorance, I didn't recognize it for all that it was while it was happening in my own life, but I do not want to ever benefit from others being pulled down again. I specifically want to apologize to Britney Spears and Janet Jackson, both individually, because I care for and respect these women. I know I have failed. Veronica, let's go to you on this. What do you think of Timberlake's apology? And then what do you see as the future of his career? Because he is now in such a problematic spotlight.
Well, the statement was clearly not made by him, probably. It sounded very much like a PR firm. And it didn't really know like what he did. He just, because there was such an uproar in the public, then he had to say something. But I was not a fan of his, ever. So I always prefer like Christina and Britney. And even them, I'm like, well, not great, but like, I just never understood like why he was like the big, huge success. And then like Britney and Janet Jackson had their careers destroyed. You know,
well, and you know, I had this talk with Emmy one day, and I was like, Janet Jackson has more legendary you know, of a resume in her pinky finger than Justin will ever accumulate in his life.
Yeah, but they were that both part of the scandal, and yet he's like, "Oh, I'm the innocent victim," and she's like,
and that's what I'm getting to is I
so
don't understand why she was ever, you know, the one to be canceled. Well, why she had to do the Oprah interview crying and had to apologize. Well, she was the one cut and censored. It never made sense to me. And you know, this whole Britney Spears thing also never made sense to me because, you know, you can do the whole, what I like to call Taylor Swift music. You know, you break up with somebody and you feel the need to make it into a song to be edgy and, you know, like, oh my God, look what he did to me. Look what she did to me. And I'm like, no,
Timberlake cared that he got cheated on. I'm sure he was cheating too. Like,
you're just ridiculous. I mean, and you know, bringing up the whole Diane Sawyer interview that was shown in the documentary, you know, that's another very problematic spotlight right now. But Emmy, let's go to you on this because I want your opinion as somebody who did watch the documentary.
Okay. So I was around, obviously. I was a huge NSYNC, Justin Timberlake, boy band, Britney Spears fan. When it happened, I'm like, oh my God, he cheated on her? Or she cheated on him? Oh my God, that's crazy. And then years later, I'm like, wait, he let Janet just sit there? Like, he didn't help her? 2 words with the Janet thing, Leslie Moonves. He ruined Janet's career because he felt she was the cause of it. He felt she purposely had that nipple ring because she knew it was going to happen. So he ruined her life. Well, musically, anyway. With Britney, I think it's kind of interesting because I don't know if anyone remembers this, but after he did that, Britney Spears came out and said, Justin, I'm never going to tell your little secret. I don't know what she meant by it, but just look it up. Oh, and something we're not talking about, when he married Jessica Biel, allegedly, there's a clause in their prenup that if he cheats on her, she gets like $500,000 every time he cheats on her. Just saying.
I wonder if she's supporting him now.
She said, I love you in that post. She literally posted that under that. I love you. Hello, enabler. He has a new movie coming out, just to let you know.
Just saying. He has a new movie? That's cute.
He does have a new movie
I know. I was like, I don't care for his acting, so pass.
Well, that's why
I'll use that term loosely.
That's why he's doing this apology. And Diane Sawyer, all right, I liked the special. I thought it was well done, but there's nobody except for one person to really verify that, and they left out Chris Croker. I'm sorry, Chris Croker needed to be in that. He was, I don't know if you guys remember the Leave Britney Alone guy from MySpace. He needed to be in that. And he was maligned and called every name in the book for that. And now years later, people are like, oh, we side with him. Yeah, Diane Sawyer was disgusting, though, for what she said. She was disgusting. But
yes. So, Joe, let's go to you. What do you think of how problematic Justin Timberlake is becoming? And what did you think of his very PR-oriented apology?
Well, I hate to be the naysayer here because well, no, I don't hate to be the naysayer. I am the naysayer. First of all, I watched the Britney Spears documentary. The frustrating part about the entire documentary was that, and I think the lawyer who said it best was, I don't know I don't know all the information. So I'm going to reserve some judgment. And I don't think anyone else is reserving that judgment. You know, people are hearing this Free Britney movement. They hear about the conservatorship. They feel like, you know, that they have all these details. And, you know, frankly, I don't know that Britney has ever recovered from whatever mental illness that she was dealing with over the course of the past decade plus. But, you know, the stuff was shaving her head and just kind of going off the deep end and needing to check into these facilities and deal with her mental health issues. To me, even looking at her Instagram posts, it doesn't look like that stopped. That doesn't look like it's gone away. It doesn't look like she seems more with it than what I would expect someone who's dealing with mental health issues to appear like. So to me, it's a little bit frustrating that they put out this documentary. They're really advocating strongly for her. And in the wake of doing that, they bring up some of these things like the situation with Justin Timberlake, the situation with, you know, her security or her spirit guru or whoever that guy, Sam, who she's still dating. So there's all of these things that they have now rehashed and brought back to the forefront. And I think, you know, relitigating these experiences does nothing to help Britney. It does nothing to support her in whatever mental illness that she is currently dealing with or has dealt with. And it does nothing to change the conservatorship argument where they go into court. They have every opportunity to argue this every single time that they do that. And so far, they're at the point where they now have joint conservatorship. So there's still something there that's allowing her father to remain in that position, and we don't know what that is. But I also think, just like the story with Justin Timberlake and her, we don't know what the story is. They're the only two that know what happened between them. You know, did he come out in the press and say some crazy stuff at the time, you know, about sleeping with her, you know, as they were two young kids? Absolutely. Not certainly not something that's a defensible position. But I think here we are still relitigating the situation and relitigating the Super Bowl from years ago, where we don't know. And I still think we don't know what happened in the Super Bowl. I find it hard to believe that someone could go through that many rehearsals and practice to prepare for that large of an event and somehow screw it up where they accidentally rip someone's shirt off. That just seems like...
Who do you think is at fault, though?
I don't think it's a matter of who's at fault. I think it was, if it wasn't orchestrated, then it was just a mishap. It was either a mishap, but how could it not be orchestrated?
Right. The point is that if it's orchestrated, they were both involved, but only one person got punished. Yeah, that's right. The part. Like the whole thing with me and Janet is like.
And then if it wasn't orchestrated,
you know,
if it wasn't orchestrated, then it happens. It's a live event. Madonna almost busted her ass and, you know, 8-inch heels a few years ago.
I remember that.
You know, accidents happen on a live performance, regardless of how many times you rehearse it. But you know, if it was orchestrated,
career, I just don't think that's worth someone losing their whole like.
Talk to less.
No, not at all. I mean, if it was all orchestrated, then you are still looking at how women are treated in entertainment. And I think that can't go away. You are looking at, if it was orchestrated, then you're looking at that this, you know, guy got a free ride for it, and Janet Jackson was censored and couldn't go on any CBS television network for years and years and years.
And Justin's been back to the Super Bowl, just to let you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, you know, Janet even said in that first interview she did after the incident, she's like, I can't go on anything owned by CBS, no owned subsidiary networks. I can't do any press for them, anything. But even
it's not like Les Moonves, you know, respects women, because that's why he's out of a job right now.
Even if it wasn't orchestrated, which I believe that it wasn't. I believe it was a live television mishap, which happens all the time, and we've seen it happen at the Super Bowl many, many, many times. Then it's still problematic. And I think, you know, Justin Timberlake is somebody who has always been a little bit shady to me. You know, there's just little incidences that happen. And, you know, I think that when you are a star who is constantly in the spotlight, then yeah, you do kind of have to watch where you come from. You can't be everybody else. You can't be having, an alleged affair, you know what I mean, with somebody, one of your co-stars. You've got to take things more seriously when you're a Justin Timberlake type of person. So I find this whole situation very interesting, especially.
Has he had to be held accountable throughout his entire career?
No, not at all. I mean, people talk about him. People talk about these situations. We're talking about the apology right now, but the apology is going to be, "Aw, Justin Timberlake. Oh, you're adorable. Oh, I'm going to go listen to, Got This Feeling from the Trolls soundtrack. Aw." I mean, that's all it's going to be. It's never going to amount to anything.
And it was a written statement. I didn't hear him speaking words about.
Yeah, I mean, that was a written. It's almost like, in my opinion, I think it would have been better if he did a video of himself not reading from a teleprompter or a cue card, but actually hearing his side of the story. I think that's what's missing, and why I, like a lot of people, are judging Justin so hard on this, because it seems as though he never tells his side of the story in a way that seems truthful to who he is as a person. And I think that's one of the most problematic things. I'm all up for hearing your story, but if you're just going to give us a written Instagram statement, which seems like it was written by somebody in your PR camp, then what's the point?
Well, two things. One thing, I don't think anything that he said in there indicated to me that he talked to Britney and Janet first and then put this statement out. I need to see that. If you're going to do this written statement, say explicitly, I apologize to Janet. I apologize to Britney. Here's why I'm saying this to you guys. And number two, did you guys, speaking of women being treated badly, did you guys hear about what's going on at the Buffy Angel set with Joss Whedon?
Yes,
Casey, did you hear about that?
It's been everywhere lately.
The thing that I love about that is immediately when Charisma Carpenter came out and said, "This is how he made me feel. Ray Fisher triggered me to come out and feel safe." Her male co-stars, James Marsden and Jay August, came out and supported her immediately. And then her other female co-stars as well. So that's what he should have done. The second Janet had heat, immediately he should have came out and supported her. But he didn't. I just think that says what.
The whole Britney Spears documentary, much like Joe, I even feel that there was some problematic stuff with that documentary being aired. I don't want to go into it too much, but, I feel as though the documentary should have never been done because it was too scattered brain, in my opinion. 1 second it's talking about her career, the next it's showing the Diane Sawyer clip, the next it's talking about conservatorship. There was no flow to it. I'm like, if you're going to do a documentary, why can't you just celebrate Britney Spears and then, decide, hey, at the end, we'll tack on speaking about her conservatorship. I feel as though
it didn't feel verified either. It felt like it was a fan that did it, not professionally researched. It didn't tell me anything.
It felt like stuff I could read on Wikipedia. I mean, there was
it did really well though.
I mean, with the Whitney and Bobby Christina documentary, yes, we've seen that a million times, but I felt there was something new there. I was emotionally invested in that documentary. Even saying, regardless of what people say about her, I was invested with the Wendy Williams documentary. I felt there was a lot of new stuff there. But this documentary felt so different. It didn't feel like anything that I was truly invested in, and that comes as a Britney Spears fan. I was like, oh, okay, they made another documentary. So what? They aired an old Diane Sawyer clip. Okay, I can do that. I can look that up on YouTube. You know, show me a hot mic moment or something. It's like I didn't learn anything new about Britney Spears.
But I do think it's interesting. When that interview came out, we all thought she was just a weird crybaby. When it came out in 2021, we side with her because our society has changed so much. Even when I just watched a clip of Lindsay Lohan on David Letterman. That's why David Letterman is trending on Twitter right now. The way he talked to Lindsay about her going into rehab, I was like, oh my God, that would never happen today. Never. So society has changed a lot from what we can tolerate as well.
Well, and I think, you know, the way people do an interview has changed. You know, nobody will ever, you know, like we talked about previously, nobody will ever do an interview like a Barbara Walters again. Nobody will ever ask the hard, difficult, want-to-know questions ever again on a regular basis on a network show. Nobody will ever do that because it's all about censorship nowadays. And, you know, journalists are kind of losing the censorship fight, in my opinion. Anyway, let's go to something a little more.
Well, just real quick about Britney. I just feel like we just need to talk about the fact that, like, I just always felt bad for her. I never, like, the thing is, she was a child. And then the industry, the society just, like, over-sexualized her, and she never had agency over herself. And when Timberlake also kind of sort of being part of that, like, you know, when they were talking about whether they had sex or not, that was, like, her image that she had was to be pure. And it's okay for guys to have sex when you're teenagers. It was totally normal. It wasn't okay for her because she was everyone wanted to over-sexualize a child.
Exactly.
So it's like I would break too, like to be a big pop star like that and then have no agency of your whole life. I mean, the fact that her dad is trying to control her life and obviously did not do a good job. So like he should not have, and her parents should not have any say in her life. Like,
she was held from a standard.
Shoot Britney. I forgot about that part. That was new. I don't remember that before. That was disgusting. Yeah. You want to shoot somebody just because she has a sexy personality?
So why didn't they have any of her family aside from the video clips that they showed? They didn't have her dad, they didn't have her mom, they didn't have her sister, they didn't have her brother. They had one of her brothers. But why were any of those people involved in this documentary? It's like,
and you know, shortly after the documentary aired, there was talk about the family doing a sit-down interview. And to be quite honest, I don't want to watch that. I don't feel the need to watch a Britney Spears sit-down family interview exclusive with Dr. Phil and Oprah and Gianna trying to fix their lives. I don't feel the need to, you know, look at that for an hour-long special on CBS. Yeah, you know, so, and with, you know, the Whitney and Bobby Christina documentary, you know, they had best friends and they had managers and agents and people who knew them well. And Joe, you're right. That's the part that was missing from the Britney Spears documentary. It seemed thrown together last minute to fill the 9 o'clock time slot.
Or to get ratings like they did.
Well, because I agree with Veronica that, you know, that there's certainly this pattern of her losing her agency. Like that to me is certainly something that you've seen play out, whether it's publicly or privately. We don't know to what extent that's happened. But now you've got these people that are intimately involved in her life, and none of them are having this conversation about why she still hasn't regained her agency. So to me, we're hearing half of this conversation based on what Instagram followers have pieced together from reading the tea leaves, and we don't know what's really happening. We don't know how bad her mental health is right now. We don't know, you know, why she actually did cancel her big, you know, Vegas, the next, you know, house the house thing that she was supposed to be doing. So
yes.
we don't know so much. And yet, you know, we all have these opinions, we all have these feelings about it. But I think at the end of the day, it comes back to, we do know that she's lost her agency. So,
and I definitely think her family's involved. Same thing with Lohan. I definitely think their parents messed them up.
Yeah. And it's where do we go from here, and trying to, you know, to find some positive resolution. I don't know.
I have a question.
I think the documentary did it.
Why aren't we talking about Kanye? Why isn't there a documentary about Kanye? After his mom died, his life went, and he is like the poster boy of mental health. Has anybody been around the last couple of years? But we're not talking about him. We're talking about Britney and Lindsay. I don't understand. I don't get it.
Well, and that's an interesting point. We do have to move on, though. We certainly, you know, want our audience to continue this discussion with us, because it is quite interesting to look at the face of mental health with these documentaries.
And how society affects mental health.
Yes, most certainly. So recently on the Drew Barrymore show, a chef by the name of Antonella Luciano appeared to talk about her amazing work in the Chicago area by cooking meals for hospital workers in 15 different hospitals. She's, of course, honoring frontline workers during this difficult time of the pandemic. And she's also remembering her father, who passed away 2 years ago. And her father always instilled lessons in her to honor hospital workers and treat them with respect. And so during this interview, she thought it was just going to be another interview, but she was in fact surprised by Giada De Laurentiis, who is, of course, the iconic Food Network star, who's authored many cookbooks and has many shows on the network. And it was just a really nice clip to watch, especially I loved her reaction. So Veronica, what do you think of this chef being surprised, and what does it mean to you that in some parts of this country, our frontline workers are being taken care of during this difficult time?
I mean, it was really sweet because like the chef and her dad were like big Giada fans. So for Giada to come and just, you know, it was really really sweet. I can see why they were like waterworks.
Right.
But, you know, then that also begs the question, like, it's really nice, these heartwarming stories that make the news about the frontline workers. But the problem is the government should be like funding them and giving them everything they need, including protection, that we wouldn't have to have these stories, unfortunately. Like, why are we not taking care of these people that are saving lives? And then the government's actually making it harder for them by like not having, you know, prior to now having a proper vaccine development distribution. You know, people aren't paid well. You know, people aren't getting trade well. It's I don't know. It's hard because like you want the heartwarming stories, but you also think
what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, the infrastructure and the society that's behind it. That's, you know.
Most certainly. Emmy, what about you? What did you think of this little happy moment in this hardworking chef's life?
I would have loved to have done this for my sister by love. I have 3 sisters by love. And one of my sisters is actually a nurse, and she has to wear a mask for 9 hours a day, and she's got like mask acne. And I would have loved to have surprised her with like a Jason Mraz or something. We literally could not have any holidays this year. We couldn't have any birthday parties, and I couldn't even visit her. Normally I visit her and I have like dinner over her house. We couldn't even visit. So I just really think that we need to honor these people a lot more than we do. She's got her vaccines, just to let you know. She said the second vaccine was, it put her down more than the first one, but she's doing good. And more of these stories, damn it.
Right.
So good. Like when I met the Property Brothers, I was like a deer in headlights. I was like, so I can only imagine that woman. Oh, that was like, yeah. More stories like this, please.
Everybody needs to wear masks so we wouldn't have to put our frontline workers in danger.
Yeah.
And overburden them.
Exactly. And then Joe, what are your thoughts on this very happy story?
You know, it's a great heartwarming story from tying everything into the COVID experience. And I think we all have everyone has their own COVID experience, right? Like we're all seeing it through a different lens. It's really cool that the chef has taken the time to figure out how to take something that she's both passionate about and makes, earns a living doing, and transitioning into kind of COVID mode, and also being able to support frontline workers. And I know we talked about it last week with the Super Bowl, where there was a similar way to honor those people that are working hard. They're out there, trying to save lives and trying to keep us safe. I think that's a great story in and of itself, but we do need to do more. Again, maybe this is the agree with Veronica day, but I think we need to do more as a society. Our government needs to chip in more. We need to make sure that we're protecting those that are the most vulnerable. And I think that goes for almost anything, but, especially right now where we're trying to get through what has been an extremely difficult period. And, here we are a year deep, and we know that there's going to be several months ahead where we're continuing to transition back to some semblance of normalcy. And we need to support those people that are out there, that are putting in the work, that are putting their own lives in danger, and, going out and trying to keep us as safe as possible while also trying to get us through this really difficult time. I can't stress that enough, that there always needs to be more done for people that are willing to do that.
Most certainly. We have to truly protect our frontline workers like the chef is trying to do by keeping them, filled with nutrition. And, it's just very important that the spotlight continues to shine on them, because the pandemic is not over and they're still working as hard as ever to keep us safe. So let's keep them safe as well. Today, as we go through the month of Black History Month here at JLJ This Morning, we do like to honor major Black history figures to teach the valuable lessons of history. And today we're taking a look at Shirley Chisholm, who was a politician, an educator, and an author. And of course, in 1968, she became the first Black woman elected to the United States Congress, representing New York's 12th congressional district for 7 terms from 1969 all the way until 1983. So definitely a legendary figure, and this morning we are proud to remember her. Emmy, as we come to a close, where can our viewers find you on social media?
Miss Emmy Morgan across the board. And just a little tip, when you're disposing of your mask, just cut the ears so that if an animal gets it, it doesn't stick on them. Just wanted to say that. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
And a mask over your nose and mouth at the same time. And double mask if you
can.
I didn't think I had to say that, but apparently.
I would think so, but I've still seen it. It's like, we're year-end people.
Yes.
I don't know.
And trust me, you can breathe. I wear it for 8 hours a day.
Oh my gosh.
Breathe in the mask. Joe, what about you? Where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at JDubs with a Z 413, and same with Instagram, JDubs413. I hope everyone had a great Valentine's Day.
Yes, it was lovely.
I had an amazing Valentine's Day.
Yes. And Veronica, what about you? Where can they connect with you?
I'm Veronica Dang.
And you can connect with me at Casey S. Hutch, and you can also find our show on social media, Facebook and Twitter at JLJ This Morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and have a lovely rest of your day. We will see you next week.